fabulous thing that we didn't get.
Big time. Take two. August 5th, 2020. August 5th, 2020. I'm going to cut this part off later. So this is week number 2. So welcome to the Epic Begins with One Step Forward show with Aurora Winter and Zander Sprague. And today we're going to launch into what must be one of the most important topics, which is how to boldly proclaim your goals, visions, dreams, your purpose, and what you're going to do. Because if you don't have it specified, you probably will miss it every single time. But before we dive into that content, we want to get the update from Zander, because Zander is taking on this heroic, epic journey of deciding to take his speaking career a quantum leap forward during the pandemic, the coronavirus. You remember that in 2020 when all events were canceled and conferences were canceled? Well, during this most difficult period, he has decided and proclaimed that yes, he is decisively moving forward on his lifelong dream of becoming a speaker who speaks to crowds of many thousands, and he certainly has the skill. So Zander, we love to follow along and hear about what went well and what didn't go so well. This is the completion of week number 2 after you decided, yes, I'm going for it. Green light, all systems go in spite of challenges. I will not be denied. Tell us about this past couple of weeks.
Aurora, it's like anything. We boldly decide that we're going to do stuff in a given week, and some of it happens and some of it doesn't. And I certainly had one of those weeks where I got a lot done, but I didn't necessarily have everything done for today that I wanted to have done. But again, that's okay. I think we need to be gentle, and it's what I call the 97-3 rule. And that is this: when we're doing stuff, 97% of our day is good, 3% may not be as good. Let's not focus on that 3%. Let's focus on the 97 that is good. So let's focus on the 97% I did get done.
All right.
I'll mention the 3%. But one of the things that a tool that Aurora, actually you had introduced me to but hadn't used yet, is called Descript. And it's this unbelievable software where we can take this video podcast or podcast, it doesn't matter, and I can go in and edit it. It will go in and do stuff like take out all the ums, all the ahs, does that automatically, and will adjust the video accordingly. So that's really spectacular, because
people will want to take advantage of that. That's amazing.
It is. And I went in and right in the middle of our recording last week, I had a moment where I hit the mic, and I was like, oh my gosh, I hit the mic, and we're like, oh, we need to take that out. And I went right to, I could see what it does is it will take this video, it will create a transcript for you so you could see all the words. So if I want to export all the words, I have that for my book. I'm going to do that. But also, I can see where that mistake was. I went in, highlighted it, and it was just gone from the audio and the video.
Breakthrough. Yeah, when I heard about Descript, it sounded absolutely amazing. And yeah. That's DESCRIPT or? PT. Yeah, so Descript, so people can check that out. That's a huge breakthrough. Leaning into, there's an app for that. That manually is so hard. What else happened this week? The things that you tried that didn't work, that you want to warn people, don't go there, or any other highlights of things?
Well, I think structure, for me, structure is really important. And although I had stuff, I didn't actually set timelines for myself to do stuff. And so oh yeah, I'll get to that happened to me this week. And frankly, I wanted to have been all the way through editing last week's show. That's part of my goal, is to not be like, oh my God, I now have to spend 6 hours editing stuff, but only have an hour to go edit, because it's obviously a lot easier.
That makes sense, to edit each show as we do it, and then it's not a huge backlog. Also, it's in your short-term memory, like you remembered that you hit the mic and had to take that out. So that's something that people at home can definitely, don't procrastinate, or you'll end up with probably twice as much work because it's harder to do later.
And when we put it off, then it becomes bigger and bigger and harder, and it seems insurmountable, and it's not. It has to be, again, last week I talked about the pizza analogy of we eat a pizza one slice at a time. If I do this one slice at a time, it's a lot easier.
We're under a pretty aggressive timetable recording a podcast interview that will become a chapter in your forthcoming book. So that's pretty aggressive, ambitious, enthusiastic timetable. Let's put it that way. But it sounds like you would benefit from blocking off time for editing and blocking off time perhaps for prepping the next week.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And in some ways, because of the pandemic and stuff, having a boatload of time on my hands, it's almost worse because you're like, I'll do that at noon. And so I found myself by Saturday, I hadn't done as much as I wanted to do. And I'm like, no, I've got to set some specific times. And as I said, I'm structure boy. I have structure, I can execute to it.
We'll add to your structure. I want you to put that on your calendar then, because I'm not only your interviewer, I get to be your coach.
Absolutely.
So we'll get you to put that on your calendar, hopefully before the end of this call. So this is week number 2, as I said, with Zander's epic mission to take his speaking career a quantum leap forward. He's done a lot in just 2 weeks. It was just 14 days ago that he decided, yes, I'm going to go for it. Pandemic or no pandemic, I will not be denied. He's rearranged his office. He's got his lighting. He got a mic. He got the sound. He got the script. He edited the videos. He decided on the chapter outlines, and each week we have a focus. And this is the second week. So actually you have done quite a bit, and I know you can do more because distractions do happen when you're in love. Exactly, which is a great thing. All right, so let's move on. Before we move on, for the benefit of those who don't know you, perhaps just recap quickly who you are in case they missed the first episode and you want to backtrack and catch the first episode so you can follow Zander on his entire epic journey.
Exactly. My name is Zander Sprague. As Aurora has said, I am an author, speaker, coach, mental health therapist. I wear a lot of hats, but all of it is in my mission to help other people be able to choose a positive pathway, to be their own choice champion. And simply put, that just means realizing that every single day we have choices, and when we utilize choice, it's amazing how our life transforms. I made a choice to work with Aurora and move my career forward, and Aurora listed a lot of the stuff I've done. I've got a URL. There's all of the little behind the scenes stuff that makes a dream happen.
And last week you even had a t-shirt.
I did. I had a t-shirt. I'm wearing my Choice Champion shirt today, but I do have a t-shirt that says Epic begins with one step forward. And I'm working on actually a kind of a logo, a picture that has the statement, and that picture is worth 1,000 words.
And in the last 2 weeks, you had the to come up with a new chapter called Epic Begins with One Step Forward. And then you thought, oh, do you like this, Aurora? And I love it. And then you got the URL, and then you got the t-shirt. So you actually have done a lot. And for those of you at home who want to become speakers like Zander, you could do well to copy his go for it enthusiastic attitude. Okay, and I'm Aurora Winter. I'm the author of 6 books, including Thought Leader Launch, 7 Ways to Make 7 Figures with Your $1 Million Message. And I love launching thought leaders. And of course, Zander is a thought leader. So you get to watch him being launched as you tune into this show. So how to boldly proclaim your intentions and dreams is our topic today. Now, why is that important, Zander?
If we don't have a destination, it's really hard to get there. And I think all too often people play small. They have big, bold ideas. They have wild dreams and, fantasies of the things that they think that they would like to do. But they might go a little towards it. Maybe I want to write a book, but maybe I'll just write an op-ed in the local paper versus writing the whole book or choosing to write a book.
You didn't have the goal to speak to another group of 50 people. You want to speak to 3,000. I love this boldly, how to boldly proclaim your intentions and dreams. I think that's really important because, like you say, we water it down until we think it's within reach. And then it's such a pathetic goal, but then we always fall a little bit short of whatever our goal is. So then we're just the same. Whereas if we have a 10x goal or a 100x goal, it's a huge stretch goal, but then our mind gets engaged in a different way and we have completely different results. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I also think that the whole boldly proclaiming, it in some ways puts you on the hook. Right?
Absolutely, especially if you can declare it, and that sounds like what's happening with the proclaiming.
Exactly, and I think that the boldly also is with full enthusiasm, because who do you want to buy a product from? Do you want it from this guy? Hi, I'm Zander. I have to teach you how to do something. Or hey, it's Zander. I'm so excited to share this with you, right? When we watch YouTube, which most of us do, and those ads come up, right? Those people are excited about their product, and they should be. That's the only way we're going to buy it, is if someone's enthusiastic and selling it to us versus, we think you might really like this.
Exactly.
And I think that's where the boldly comes is, I think we all know that boldly it's big, it's bright, it's loud, and I think that's really important because it is a catalyst for pushing you forward.
Yeah.
If for no other reason than you just said it with some enthusiasm and someone heard it and someone's going to go, hey, by the way, Aurora, how is your new book going?
Well, let me
wait, hold on.
Yeah, well, you have a little story about your first book, and maybe you have a story about boldly proclaiming 2 weeks ago that you're going for it. Would you like to share those two contrasting stories?
Sure. So the idea for my first book, actually, which by the way is called Making Lemonade, Choosing a Positive Pathway After Losing Your Sibling, which is a book about, I lost my older sister Lucy 22 years ago. And there really weren't a lot of books, but the idea for the book came from my having coffee with a friend of mine whose brother had recently passed. And I asked how she was doing. She made this offhand comment, which was, before I came over, I was in Barnes and Noble. For the young people, that's a bookstore where you would go in and buy stuff. And she said there were a ton of books on loss of a spouse, loss of a parent, loss of a pet, but there was really no books on loss of a sibling. And as I walked away from that, I was like, hold on, I know that. I could write a book about that. Now, keep in mind, I didn't think of myself as an author. So I was like, I'm going to write a book. Oh my gosh. And then I wrote the book and sat on it for 5 years because I was afraid to put it out there. Now let's fast forward many years. And here I am, I'm clear about where I want to go and what I want. And in talking with you, Aurora, I was like, I need some help to get me to, I can see it. You could see it, but how do I get there? And you have lots of experience helping people to create and manifest their $1 million message. Well, here we go. I'm going to boldly proclaim that I'm on an epic journey to ramp up my speaking career, ramp up my book sales, ramp up all of who I am and share it boldly with the world.
I so love that because I've known you for a number of years and you are so enthusiastic and you have such a great content and you love to help. And I just was frustrated, like, we need to get your message out. So I'm loving that you're stepping into the spotlight so decisively and boldly. Can you share how you felt differently? You wrote your book, but then you sat on it for 5 years, probably due to fear rather than procrastination. And
Yeah.
then this time you were like, no, I'm just not going to play small. I'm going to go for it. How did those two experiences feel different?
I think the second time, part of it is having written a book. It's not as hard the second or third time as it is the first time you go to do it. I think there's been a lot of learning that's gone on in the last, 15 years in terms of me learning how I need to work. And I am a spoken author. So I wrote my books by dictating. I think another thing that's different is I've had an incredible amount of time in the last 6 months to think about what I want. And I'm tired of being small. I'm tired of the excuses of why I can't do something. The fact of the matter is, each and every one of us can do whatever it is that we choose to do. We simply have to take that step forward and start to do it. And also, recognize the fear, but not let the fear get in the way of our dreams, right?
Yeah, and don't play the game that when I get over the fear, then I'll go for my dreams, because
Right.
never.
Because as I said, I'm a perfect example in the last week of, oh yeah, I'll do that later. I'll do that. But later, when does later happen? Because when I get up to 12 o'clock, later is now 2 o'clock. It's always in front of you.
And to use me as a bit of an example, my next book is called Spoken Author, and Zander is my case study. So it is a wonderful way that we're helping each other step into the next phase. I'm super stoked about helping people like you get their message out in this way that's so much easier by just speaking it out. So difficult for people who aren't writers to wrangle words, and then it gets all knotted up, and then it sounds like all choked instead of their natural energy.
Yeah.
But just to ground this conversation about how to boldly proclaim your intentions and dreams, many people may have heard this, but I think it's definitely worth mentioning again. In New Woman magazine, they reported a study of, was it Yale University graduating seniors? Yeah, and only 3% had specific written goals. 10% had specific goals, but they were not written down. And 87% had no specific goals at all. And 20 years later, the 3% who had those specific written goals outperformed the other 97% combined. And the source on that is New Woman magazine, May 2007, and it's also in one of my workbooks. Just to ground us, this is a non-trivial issue to make a clear, specific goal, to write it down, and then proclaim it. Because when you tell other people, you're on the hook, or you're...
That's it. An example of doing that was I really had always wanted to run a marathon. And so I wasn't sure how I was going to do that. I did some research. I joined Team in Training, but then I had to do fundraising. So I had to tell everyone that I was running a marathon on this date. You want to know what? Now I'm really on the hook, because I just told hundreds of people that I was doing something. And I like to be someone who says, if I'm going to do something, I'm at least going to give it my best. If I'm not successful, it wasn't because I was afraid or I didn't try. And I think we dream big, and then we don't know how to get there. But that's okay. You want to know what? Our day is not fully functioning, meaning I don't know what's going to happen today. There's certain things that I know are planned, but I look, right now, I have no idea exactly how the whole recording is going to go. However, I'm still here and I'm doing my best, and it's going to be good. And that's
better that you had me press record.
Well, there is that I would hate all this content. We go, oh my God, that was incredible. We didn't record it. Wow.
But what I like about this conversation is it's alive. Whereas if it was all like rehearsed every beat, people would understand that it's a performance rather than a conversation. So this is a conversation. So I'm going to also share a recent personal example of boldly proclaiming my intentions and dreams. A little bit of backstory. So my business involves events. That's the primary way that I help thought leaders connect. We go to exotic locations. We went to the south of France, Nice, south of France one year, went to Florence, Italy, and Zander and I and some other people went to Mexico in February 2020, just before the coronavirus was officially a problem, which was declared in the middle of March by President Trump. And I loved it. And I just love hosting events. And in February, I had all planned out my events for the year and where they were going to be. And it's really the engine for my business. And it's a really great component of helping thought leaders or helping the coaches that I train. And then the wheels came off middle of March. All events are canceled. Conventions are canceled. So Zander's speaking career and my business, which is event centered, was very problematic. And for about a month, I was really depressed and didn't have any wind in my sails. So I thought, okay, Aurora, stop that. You have to come up with a big, bold goal. And you know what? Surviving is not a big, bold goal, right? Like that, we want to be thriving. So I set myself a goal that I thought was a bit of a stretch goal given the pandemic, although I have done more than this before. And I just liked it. So I set the goal of 100K in 100 days. And I remind myself of my big, bold goal all of the time. I have my bullseye, 100K in 100 days. So I'm not really that money motivated. So actually it was really helpful doing that. I noticed how I wasn't paying attention. So then I started paying attention because I've got this and I've got something else on my fridge. And I started the challenge to myself on May the 30th. And because I was paying attention, I asked people for orders. You know what? When you ask people, you just never know what happens. So in 55 days, I had exceeded my goal of 100K in 100 days. And then it was interesting. The day that happened was like so rocky. It was like, yeah, I'm top of the world. Yay, yay, yay. And then it was like, what if I can't do it again? What if it was a fluke? What if that's all the revenue for the whole year? Oh, what if I announce this? And then that's like a one-shot deal. Then I'll be embarrassed, because I've been shooting videos, although I haven't released them yet. It's called Diary of a Determined Entrepreneur. And then part of that money actually came in through a grant that I had applied for like months earlier. And the government didn't hear back. So it's a 30-year loan, 3% interest. So basically a grant. And then I thought, well, I shouldn't count that. Maybe that, and I had this whole story. And then I'm like, no, I said 100K in 100 days. I didn't say how. And I really get annoyed when my clients go like, yeah, but they don't count things. It's like the person who's in the middle of a flood on the top of the roof of his house praying for God to rescue him. I'm sure you've heard this fable, but it's a good one. People come by in a rowboat. Can we give you a lift? No, that's okay. God's going to save me. Somebody comes by in a canoe. Can we help you? No, God's going to save me. Some final person comes by in a powerboat. Can we help you? As he's like sinking, he's like, no, I prayed to God. God's going to save me. And then he drowns at the gates to heaven. I said, like, why didn't you save me? I said, well, what? You said no 3 times. I sent people to help you. So I thought, no, I'm going to count that. August 1st, I started another 100K in 100 days challenge. And all this money is pouring in, like from all kinds of random places. And I'm on track to do the 100Ks in 100 days again. But what I want to underscore, that is the really important point behind all of this, very important to me, but rambling to you perhaps. But the important point is that the second time I said, no, I'm going to do it again, I started asking better quality of questions. So instead of thinking, where can I pick up another $1,000 or $10,000 or $50,000 client, I started thinking, what businesses need what I have? And then I came up with a vision to create $10 million, be a catalyst for $10 million worth of value. And now I have an idea to launch a whole new company and raise $5 million for it. So there's also this other element that if you continue asking high quality questions, you will up your game because you will get answers if you don't wimp out. I almost wimped out there for a minute, but then I'm like, no. Yeah. And I'm finding like, oh, wow, probably I'll be announcing sometime that I did, instead of 100K in 100 days, maybe $1 million in 100 days. And it's really not about the money. The money is just a way of keeping score of the value add. So anyway, I wanted to share that personal goal setting story because that's happening right now.
And that's awesome. And congratulations, Aurora. That's I'm so excited for you. And
Thank you.
It's funny, you were talking about asking for help and value, right? And there are two things that popped into my mind I wanted to share with you and the audience, which is there's a story. Tip O'Neill, who was the Speaker of the Congress, the House of Representatives for 30 years. I was from Boston. I grew up in Boston. And he was out at an event, and this woman came up and said, "I didn't vote for you in the last election." And he said, "Why not?" She said, "You didn't ask." And I have found that I get so much more when I ask specific questions for the help that I need. Because if we have these big, bold intentions, these big dreams, rare is the person who can achieve it on their own. So you need to ask for help, but you need to ask specific questions, because if I just come to Aurora and go, "Aurora, I need help with my business," Aurora really wants to help me, but she doesn't quite know what my request is. So she's not sure whether she can say yes, no, or I can do this part, but I can't do this part. And so I think that's an essential part of our big, bold intentions and goals, is to ask for help and make sure that your ask is specific, because people who like you want to help you. Strangers actually get excited and want to help you. And the other thing in talking about value is, if you have Lamborghini ideas, don't sell it at you-go prices.
Amen.
I know the value of what I have. You set your intention in your pricing as that. If your dream is really big, if your dream is to make it to the Olympics, no matter what someone says, you go, I'm going to get there. And look, there was the story that they made a great movie of Eddie the Eagle, who said, "I'm going to be in the Olympics." And the man was really not an athlete. But it's a great story and a great example of boldly proclaiming your intention.
I really like what you're saying. I think this is super important for people to yellow highlight, because I think many people, they want X. Let's just put a number on it because that's easier to quantify. So they want a 7-figure business, but they think, who am I? Maybe I'm asking for too much. So then they settle on $500,000 or 250 or whatever. But then because they're only asking for 250, they only get 100. It's not true that it's easier to get 250 than $1 million. It's probably easier to get $1 million or build a $10 million business, because it forces you to think bigger. Because the question is not, how can I get? The question is, how can I create 10 times that value, right? And so God is not miserly, or the universe or the unified field or whatever word is best for the listeners, because I know people don't like the word God, but I'm okay with it. They niggle and they think, oh, well, I'll just ask for a penny. But meanwhile, they could have asked for a castle.
Let's look at, I mean, we can stick with cars, or we could stick with clothes, okay? Clothes are something that we all buy, right? Does the $20 pair of jeans that you might buy at Target really cost any more to make or any less to make than the $300 pair of jeans that you get from some high-end jean place? The production value is probably pretty close, and I'm talking about within probably 50 cents of what the cost is. And yet the value of the $300 pair of jeans is seen as being more. We know of designer labels, and Armani suits are $5,000, and
they actually are worth more, because we did this in my MBA. I'll have to look up the exact data. I think it was related to wine. And they studied the neurotransmitters and dopamine and the chemical reactions within people's bodies when they were told that they were having a year $200 bottle versus a $5 bottle. And the pleasure that the $200 bottle stimulated, the pleasure that it actually gave, was significantly more, even if it was actually the $5 bottle. It switched. So there is value in an experience delivered at a premium level even if it only costs 50 cents more to make the whatever Calvin Klein.
And I'm sitting here and I know we want to say, oh, in this book, I can't for life of me right now remember, but I read this book and it was a food psychologist. And it was really interesting because they went into this college cafeteria and they had a sheet of brownies and they put 1/3 on a paper plate, 1/3 on, one was on a napkin, 1/3 was on a paper plate, and 1/3 was on a china plate. And they labeled them just as a free brownie, just a brownie, and a gourmet brownie. From the same exact sheet. And the people who had the gourmet brownie rated it as being tastier, moister, whatever, right? There is exactly what you're talking about. That perceived value is there. So if we are having big, bold goals and the perceived value of our goal or our dream is seen as being really worthy.
Like perception is reality.
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
I just watched the movie this past weekend, Out for Blood in Silicon Valley. And it was telling the story of that woman, her name escapes me. But the good thing about spoken author is we get the general gist, and then in the book you can fill in the data that's missing.
Are you the woman who ran there?
I believe that's her name, yeah. And she was so passionate and so convicted that it was so important that people could have their blood test done with just a drop of blood. And she had a great story, and she was really convinced, although she crossed the line and is now facing criminal charges. But what is the value of a story that has a big, bold mission, that has a big vision to change the world? She raised $900 million. So the value of a passionately proclaimed vision that's purposeful and that will help people is about $900 million. So never mind $1 million message, $100 million message.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's so much fun in going big, going bold. There's so much energy behind that when you have those moments where perhaps you aren't believing in yourself as much, right? Where the doubt starts to creep in. You frankly have so much momentum that it pushes you right past that. You're a perfect example. Oh my gosh, do I do this again, right?
Yeah.
But the momentum of what you had set out as a goal pushed you to say, not only am I going to do that, but now I'm going to do this even bigger thing.
Exactly. And I think what's cool about my 100K in 100 days goal, it's a short enough period of time to demonstrate something. So I always like to invite entrepreneurs to have quick, fast, short experiments. And an experiment is not a success or failure, it's just a result. And faced with some proof, some evidence that I did it once, I'm like, okay, I can do it again. And who knows if I will or not, but I am going to boldly proclaim that as my intention. Let's ground this in a bit more data. I also want to just share about this company called Startup Genome. And researchers from Stanford and UC Berkeley basically analyzed the growth of 650 startups in 2011. And they found that those who had specific tangible goals and tracked and measured their results and their metrics and had mentors raised 7 times more money and had 3.5 times better growth. So again, another data point underscoring the value of a specific goal. They raised 7 times more money and 3.5 times more growth by having clear goals and then tracking and measuring their progress against those metrics.
Absolutely. And just think about it, Aurora. If you can clearly articulate what it is that you are doing, it's easier for people to understand. And I'm going to guess some of those startups were clearly able to articulate, and that's what makes them successful, right? Oh, I know what they're selling, therefore I know I want to buy that.
Yeah, they have to be clear and concise, that's for sure.
And I worked in the startup realm back in the early 2000s, and I worked for some companies that it took me about 10 minutes to explain what people were doing like, oh, here's what this company does. And it wasn't really clear. And surprisingly, those companies didn't really succeed because people weren't really clear about what they were selling.
Yeah, you got to have a clear, compelling message that's concise and that's engaging emotionally, which means a story. What myths do you think are out there that trip people up around goals, intentions, dreams? And do you want to differentiate, draw a distinction between a goal, an intention, and a dream?
Well, I guess an intention is more of the idea. The goal is more of the specific, measurable, tangible result. And the dream is all of that plus the embracing of the unknown, that this idea is bigger than I can conceptualize right now, but I have an inkling that it's huge.
Yeah, I like that. I want to confess that for myself, while I know that goals are super useful and I do have goals and I write them down and I encourage my clients to have goals and write them down, I do have a little negative like hook on goals because of past setting goals and completely missing them. And so I have a little charge around that. And I also like to invite people to have a massively transformative purpose. So for me, I'm really moved by Buckminster Fuller. So when I have the star be a massively transformative purpose that will help others or change the world for the better, that seems to dissipate this idea that I have that I might set a goal and fail. So I don't know how that resonates with you, but I do really like the concept of the massively transformative purpose.
I do like that. I think goals are good because they are waypoints on the road that we can strive for to make the bigger destination more manageable. And I'll give an example. And just as a warning to everyone, I will be talking about my marathoning all the time because it's really important, and it's incredibly transformative for me, that whole process of running marathons. I've run 4 in my life, and 26.2 miles that's a really long way to cover, right? And in order to mentally be able to get through that, I had waypoints. My first waypoint was 13.1 miles. Let me make it to the half marathon. Now, everything else I'm now counting down to where I need to go. The next one was mile 17, because now I only have single digit numbers left. Then mile 20, because I make it to mile 20, I only have 6.2 miles left. That's a 10K. If I made it this far, I can make it. And then I get to count down each of the miles from 20 down to 26 or up to 26 of finishing that goal. And it made it, when I did that, it took this really huge, very hard, like, how am I going to do it? It made it so much easier because I had those waypoints. I just need to make it to here. Oh, I've made it there. Now I need to get to here. And that may be, I get your stickiness around goals, but I think when we have big, bold dreams and goals, when we're on an epic journey, then we need to have some points along the way that we can be aiming for, because otherwise it seems so far away and so nebulous.
Yeah, like bite by bite, you can eat the elephant. I want to share something about Jeff Bezos, who I believe is the richest man alive daily. So I think we can take some advice about business from Jeff Bezos. I wrote about this in my book, Thought Leader Launch: 7 Ways to Make 7 Figures with Your $1 Million Message. So I'm quoting from Bezos. He said, most decisions should probably be made with somewhere around 70% of the information that you wish that you had. If you wait for 90%, in most cases, you're probably being slow. Either way, you need to be good at quickly recognizing and correcting bad decisions. If you're good at course correcting, being wrong may be less costly than you think, whereas being slow is sure to be expensive. And then he summarizes these bullets. Speed matters. Decide quickly. Understand most decisions are reversible. Decide with 70% of the information that you wish you had. Disagree and commit. So what if you're wrong? Course correct. So I really liked hearing about his wisdom, and there is a cost to procrastinating, playing small, or not deciding. So decide when you've got 70% of the information, go for it, and you may end up like Jeff Bezos, one of the richest men alive. How does that land with you, Zander?
I think that's absolutely right. I will be the first to admit I have no idea how I'm going to achieve all of this. I've got a semi roadmap, but I also realize that there's going to be times in this journey that I'm on where it doesn't go the way I think, or I have some epiphany that puts me off in a completely different direction, and that's okay. It is the journey. The destination is great, but we better enjoy the journey while we're on it, right? And we may look around and see something and discover something in ourselves or in our quest that is even bigger, even better than us. And I do agree that you have to sometimes just jump off the cliff and just believe in yourself that it is going to be okay.
Well, it was interesting, like the proof, as soon as you decided you were going to go for it and take your speaking career up a quantum leap, in spite of the coronavirus pandemic, making it about the worst possible time to do so, immediately that same day, I think it was, you texted me this idea about epic begins with one step forward. And I'm like, that was a breakthrough, but I don't think that breakthrough would have come if you hadn't decided. Like once you put things in motion, more things happen. It's the same like my boldly proclaiming this 100K in 100 days in spite of the pandemic. And then once I declared that, things started to be in motion. And now I see all kinds of opportunities to contribute and make a whole lot more than that if I had been playing to survive rather than thrive, I wouldn't have seen. And I am also driven, in case this is not obvious, like I want to set an example to encourage others in my community. Many people are struggling now, and it's one thing to encourage them, but by example, if I can show, hey, I'm going forward, pedal to the metal, you're going forward, Zander, pedal to the metal. And so we're not going to let a pandemic stop us or other adversity. Life is full of adversity. It's never like perfect, but we have to go anyway, rain or shine.
And then I think what comes to my mind is there was a book I read many years ago called The Diamond Cutter, and it's talking about Buddhism and the diamond industry. And what was interesting in this book, and of this whole book, you always take away like one little nugget, but the nugget I took away is that in Buddhism, there's this concept that things aren't inherently good or bad. It is how we interpret what is going on. And in terms of, Aurora, what you and I are doing, we recognize that the coronavirus completely changes how we have to do stuff. But instead of going, oh my gosh, I can't go book conferences, I can't go speak in front of the 3,000 people I want to speak in front of, I choose to look at it and say, I have an opportunity to find a new way to do this.
Right. And look at you, you're leaning into videos, editing videos, Zoom.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, it's the coronavirus situation in and of itself, good or bad, doesn't really matter. Look, the sun is out right now for us, okay? I think that's a good thing. But if we're in the middle of a drought and I'm a farmer, that may not be a good thing.
It's true. It's absolutely true. And I think the key is to deal with whatever way the river is flowing. Like notice which way the current's going and decide whether you're going to paddle upstream or go with the flow, and resisting whatever is not your best choice. Noticing what is, not denying what is. Yeah. So is there anything further you'd like to share around how to boldly proclaim your intentions and dreams before we move on to some practical tips you have for the listeners?
No, certainly I think we've shared a lot.
Yeah.
And I do have just a couple of simple things for people as a way to get the ball rolling, right? If you feel like you're just at the beginning of this journey, you have this idea, write it down. It is amazing what happens when we write something down. It becomes tangible. It's something we can see. If you feel that you're more like, okay, Zander, I wrote it down, but now what do I do? Share it with friends and family, okay? Let them know what you're up to. Because again, once you put it out there, people are going to ask, because when you're enthusiastic about it, people want to know. It's infectious. Now, the third step, the more advanced step, and I alluded to it, which is ask others for help. Okay. As I said, I can't make this goal without the help of Aurora and many other people, some of whom I don't even know, I haven't met yet, but are going to be really helpful in my journey. And I am not surprised, but always delighted that when I ask for specific help, people are, by and large, really happy to help out. People are helpful. They really are. They want to be helpful. I want to be helpful to people. If I see someone and they're looking at a map in a city and I know the city, I'll stop and say, can I help you? I know as a tourist, that's sometimes helpful because I'm trying to get someplace and I'm looking at a map and I have no idea like how to get there. So someone offering help I feel really good. And when I get to help someone, I feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. People are super helpful. And I heard this study recently. It was on a train station, and the experimenter had a research subject who was going to ask to borrow your cell phone, which of course is a precious device you don't want to give to a stranger. And it was raining. So the control simply said, may I borrow your cell phone? And the experiment said, oh, too bad about the rain. May I borrow your cell phone? And the incidence of actually giving the stranger the cell phone, I think, was 40% more. Just that one sentence of connection, too bad about the rain. Yeah. So connect first. If you can, indicate how your vision is going to help others and isn't just like, hey, can you lend me $100? But even if you give the smallest reason why, you substantially increase the probability of people helping you. I always like to ask people, how can I help you? How can I serve? What problems have you got that I might be able to help you with? And so that kind of attitude really goes well. So these are great points. So number one, write it down. 2, share it with friends and family. And 3, ask others for help. I would add on the sharing with friends and family, who the wet blankets are in your friends and family. Don't be sharing with wet blankets. Share who are full of enthusiasm and who will support you. And if you're looking for approval, you may not get the support. Whereas if you boldly proclaim your intentions and dreams, you will. Whereas if you, should I do this? That may not deliver the results because your lack of confidence will not provide the results that you want. And then just notice where you're sticking and tune in because we'll have more things to help you. So in a second here, we're going to talk about what's coming up next. But before that, I just want to let you know we have more goodies for you to lean into this. So you can go to zandersprague.com and get some really great goodies, including a PDF with some epic sayings that you'll want to print out and put on your fridge or put in your bathroom mirror or perhaps in your car and share with friends. You can go to my website, thoughtleaderlaunch.com, and get your Thought Leader Starter Kit, which includes an ebook, an audiobook, and some video training about your $1 million message. And please do subscribe to both of those so that you get the value. And also we want to let you know when Zander's book is coming out so that you get the early bird special and that you can participate in the live streaming. We've got all kinds of goodies planned and we want to be sure to let you know about that. And of course, subscribe. If you'd like to watch this rather than listen to it, then check out our YouTube channel. So Zander, what is coming up next week, or do you have anything further to add to that before we zip on to What?
Failure is part of the journey. I
That's
think that's actually, it sounds negative, but it really isn't. I think all of us understanding that we don't get it perfect.
yeah.
But what do you do when it doesn't go perfect?
Yeah. Failure is part of the journey. Oh, that's going to be really great and really useful. So if you have any issues with failure, you will not want to miss the next show on The Epic is One Step Forward. And I'm Aurora Winter, and and this is a wrap for the second show. This is week number 2. And be sure to follow us on the next week and find out about Zander's insights into failure being part of the journey, and also to find out what he's going to do in the next week. Do you have any big goals that you want to boldly proclaim at the end?
Boldly proclaim. Well, I'm gonna have the 2 videos that we now have. I will have those edited. I will have the podcasts also in the can, edited and ready to go. And
are you going to block off time in your calendar to do these things?
I am going to block off time.
Excellent. All right, there you go. See, he walks his talk. All right, we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.